Could a 36-year-old pastor who represents an Austin suburb be the Democrat who finally turns Texas blue? That's what Democrats are certainly hoping as James Tallarico launches his bid for the United States Senate. He's a former teacher, and he won over a very influential podcast host when they sat down over the summer.
My students are the ones I think about when I'm at the Capitol. They are the criteria that I use to evaluate public policy, not if it's a Democratic bill or a Republican bill, not if it's going to get me, ex-lobbyist support. It is, will this help my students or will it hurt my students? Period. And it makes things a lot easier.
It's beautiful that you made that decision. And I think that's what we need. We need people that have legitimate, personal, real-life experience with other people that are benefiting from certain social programs and certain things that should not be cut.
But look at the screen. Democrats have really thought they had the candidate to turn Texas blue over the past several years. 2018, they thought it was Beto O'Rourke. He came closer than people had in the past, but you see he lost. And then fast forward to last year, 2024, Colin Allred didn't really come that close to Ted Cruz when he tried to do it. My panel is back here. Of course, Colin Allred is running as well for the Democratic nomination in Texas now against James Tallarico. We'll see if Beto O'Rourke jumps in. You spoke with him. I just want to, as you come in, put up one of the quotes from your interview. Here's what he said. We've had 10 years of Trumpian politics, politics as blood sport, politics as professional wrestling. Now it feels like there's a hunger for the opposite of that, like civility and honesty and compassion and sincerity.
Yes, it is a very different approach than the last ones we talked about. And with a candidate who, Texas has this part-time legislature, he's got all next year to run around the state and campaign. That was also implicit what he was telling me, that Colin Allred was limited a bit by being in D.C. He was a big surrogate for him. He was having rallies everywhere. He's going to use the Beto strategy of just being very present. So he told me he wants to have town halls with Republicans and with Tea Party groups and people who he thinks will not like him and will not agree with him, because that has been his skill. And he gets to Austin in 2019. He's already a pretty big deal, because in Austin, there are a lot of Democrats in safe seats who don't know how to reach a national audience or a skeptical audience. He flips a suburban seat, and he's out there battling Republicans on gender issues and on abortion and saying, I frankly, not saying this is me, he's a little more humble, I know more about the Bible than you. I can out-debate you on this and make a moral argument for my policies. You saw with the Rogan clip, that's compelling not to every Republican, but to a lot of people who say, yes, the party of Ken Paxton might not have every moral decision figured out.
Yeah, and you showed the results in the Senate races. There's also, think about just the results in the presidential race last year. Yeah. In 2012, after Barack Obama won re-election, there were a group of Obama campaign folks who started something called Battleground Texas, turned Texas blue by 2028. Well, in last year's election, Kamala Harris did worse than every Democratic candidate had done since Barack Obama in 2008. They have a problem here of politics that is run up against them, right? The demographics have not moved in their favor the way that they thought they would. The Latino population has not moved as democratic as they thought. Will that change now? It's a big question, including around this, the way they've now re-gerrymandered those districts, because the Republicans in the state put it so that all these Latino-heavy districts they think are going to vote Republican again because they voted for Trump. It's possible that things move. There's been a lot of problems in the state, the things that happened with the flooding last year. Yeah. That might be the perfect storm. And also, just one more point of the Republicans in their Senate.
Yeah, well, let's look at that.
Yeah.
Because there is an incumbent Republican. This is not an empty seat. And that is Senator John Cornyn, who was for a long time a member of the Republican leadership here in Washington. And Ken Paxton, the Attorney General, is challenging him. So they've got a pretty bloody political battle there. And, whether or not Democrats can win will really, in large part, depend on what happens in that race.
Yeah, listen, I think Democrats are hoping that Ken Paxton emerges from that. They think he's an easier person to beat because of his baggage. But I think in some ways his baggage might help him. I mean, I think he is fashioning himself as a sort of mini Trump figure where, he's obviously sinned and had a kind of complicated personal life, but he's able to say all of these forces are arrayed against against me, and you know, I should be the standard bearer in the way that Donald Trump has been. So we'll see what happens. I think John Cornyn is going to have a bit of a tough time. We'll see who gets the endorsement from there. But I think Ken Paxton, I think he'd be hard for this young man, this young pastor to beat.
Real quick.
Certainly a contrast that Democrats would love to have. I think to your point, the most fascinating element of this right now is watching kind of national Republicans try and get ahead of this, do whatever they can to undercut him, try and make very clear to their donors in terms of from a money perspective of like, you spend now, knock off Paxton so we don't have to spend later, no matter who the Democrats are running. And I think it's a very clear risk that they see. And I think Cornyn's made up some ground in the last couple of weeks, but like, it's tough.
This race is so fascinating. We're going to keep coming back to it.